Okay, welcome back again. Video 5. So, where we're at here, just to kind of think about things, is you've gotten now good, hopefully, at realizing when you're stressed and feeling what that feels like. You've been working on being able to push yourself into a relaxed state when that happens. And that's all great for you. But what about those around you? So that's what we're going to talk about a little more today. So I'm going to start here. This is a website that's created 6 often overlooked qualities of a great police officer, and I've got the whole link to you there. I'm not going to show you the all 6. I'm going to really highlight the top 2. And the top one, the number one, is communication skills. And this is really going to connect with what we're going to talk about in this video. So another important aspect of effective communication is the ability to patiently listen. I would say actively listen. We'll discuss those distinctions. Officers who take the time to really hear what people are saying and who ask questions with real curiosity are going to get better results. When citizens feel like police officers truly care, they're more likely to cooperate, they typically offer more information, and they often work to help law enforcement get to the bottom of an issue. Okay? In terms that we're talking about in this course, they don't respond as emotionally, but rather they respond more rationally and reasonably when they think you are taking the time to listen and appreciate to their perspective on things. Okay? Compassion and empathy. These are a double-edged sword in police work, as I'm sure you know, but much of an officer's work requires the ability to relate to those going through incredible hardships, showing compassion while still remaining professional. You will find yourself inserted into the most tragic and chaotic moments of people's lives. Their world will be upside down, and you will need to be a compassionate, strong authority figure. You will be the symbol of both calm and sympathy. This is the tightrope, okay? A little bit. This is really, this notion that not only do you have to listen, but you have to listen actively, and you have to show them you've listened. And when they're trying to communicate something of emotional significance to them, you have to tell them you get the emotion. And often you can do that best if you actually share that emotion. That's what empathy is. If they see in your face that you feel what they feel, then they think you've heard them and understood them. And that can just disarm this whole spiral we've been talking about, the negative spiral. And it can make them suddenly willing to listen to you. Okay? So, let's just put this in our gnarly framework now. Notice you can check in with yourself. You can summon relaxation. We're now going to focus on being able to spread the calm that you feel to those around you. Okay. So, I want to start out by just saying this, that cop. What I'm talking about right now, you probably say, hey, I know people that are good at this already, that do exactly everything you've talked about. And I'm not suggesting that what I'm bringing to you is anything new. It certainly isn't new. And I bet you know that cop. I bet you can think of one or more police officers who are extremely good at diffusing situations. My bet to you is, some of these things we've talked about, maybe they're more natural at it, just like an athlete can be natural at certain skills. So maybe they naturally are more in tuned to their own anxiety systems. Maybe they naturally have ability to control and keep themselves from getting too anxious. And maybe they naturally listen to others. I would suggest to you, if you know that cop or those cops, pay some attention to them, watch them interact, and see if they are doing the things that we're talking about. And especially when it comes to this active listening, I bet they are. I certainly bet this cop is. That when he's interacting with this young boy, that young boy feels heard, and he feels a connection. And of course, that connection is going to make your job so much easier. You want to be that cop. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. So, back to Yoda. So, what we're going to talk about here is the power of listening. And it has so much power that we don't often realize. Very often when we are arguing with somebody, there is something in our mind, there's our perspective, and we badly want that other person to simply understand how we feel and why we feel the way we do. The problem is we can have two people doing that at the same time. They are more focused on communicating their ideas than they are on listening to the other. And when two people just start shooting their own perspectives at each other, nobody is listening, and things can spiral out of control and become extremely emotional. So, how do you stop this? As soon as you stop talking and start clearly and actively listening, things will calm. So, this is going to be the first trick here. Once you've kind of gotten a hold of yourself and you feel kind of centered, now you listen. And you say, maybe quite honestly, let me understand your perspective. This is almost going to be a trade, but it's going to be a trade where you're going to give up the floor first. So you're going to say, hey, you're extremely emotional about this situation. Please let me listen and understand your perspective. And just as that quote suggested earlier, feel free to ask questions. But don't ask them in a way that's challenging. Ask them in a way where you're trying to gain a better understanding. And if you start doing that, if you start asking questions of that person that show that you want to understand how they feel better, that is, dare I say, disarming. And it is disarming. It's disarming in terms of this anxiety system we're talking about. Suddenly this person is thinking, oh, you are listening. And your questions show me you're listening. And you want to understand better. Well, now they want you to understand. And in order to do that, they have to kind of bring their emotion down, use their frontal lobes to try to explain themselves in as clear a way as possible. I highly recommend that when you do this and you let that person speak until it feels like they've said their thing, and you let them know they're being heard. And how do you do this, by the way? Things like eye contact, so critical. Things like just little, not. So did you see what I just did there? The eye roll? The eye roll is dismissing whatever's being said. Yeah, whatever. If you do that, this person feels like they're not being heard. If you instead look them in the eye and go, these are good sometimes. These little brow, that's like thought. Okay. So that sort of attitude, looking them in the eye, listening to what they're saying, looking like you're thinking about it. How do you look like you're thinking about it? Think about it. Just do it. Listen to what they say, think about what they're saying, and those signals you're sending off will disarm them a little bit. And then if you can, repeat what they said. Don't put words in their mouth. Say, if I understood you right, this is how you're feeling and why. And if you can say to them what they are feeling and why, then that just tells them you heard them. And that makes them feel more relaxed. And that then opens the door for you to express your perspective. You have listened first, and now you're in a position to say, hey, listen, I listened to you. I understand your perspective. I get how you're feeling the way you do, and I understand why, and it's perfectly reasonable. However, there's another perspective that I need to share that's also perfectly reasonable, and we need to find the right way to, figure out how to deal with the situation, giving these two contrasting perspectives. There's probably others, by the way, but here's these two. Okay, so that can make the interaction rational and logical. And it can make the other person understand your perspective just as you understand theirs. And that is the greatest way to diffuse a situation. Okay? Just take a look at this picture. I want you to notice a few things. And it's a little different depending on some of the pairs you see. The pair in the foreground are the most striking. Eye contact. And by the way, just in the Black Lives Matter world, taking the knee. What does a cop taking the knee do for the people they're interacting with? It tells them, I heard you. I heard you. I get your point. I understand why you're here. I understand why you're doing what you're doing. It makes sense, and it's rationally. Now, I also have a responsibility myself, to keep the peace and protect things. And surely you understand that, and you will help me as well. So that kind of communication is so powerful. And as you see these two gentlemen looking at each other in the eye, you see that that communication is honest. That's what the nonverbals do. They tell you, I'm really listening. I'm there with you. I get it, etc. And so, you get different levels of communication from different people going on here. But this one really, I think, says a whole lot about what's going on. Okay, so scooting back a little bit, our gnarly approach, noticing anxiety within yourself so that you can do something about it, using relaxation, bringing enough relaxation to the fore to make sure you're not going to get carried away with the emotional kind of reaction, and then learning to really actively listen to the people around you, thereby gaining their respect and diffusing the emotionality of the situation and allowing a much more rational exchange of information. That's the gnarly approach. Now, what I would suggest to you is this is not just skills for managing stress at work. It certainly is. But these are skills you can use to manage stress, full stop, in your personal life as well. In fact, I would highly recommend that as you practice these skills, you maybe ask your family to watch this course. You tell them about the skills and you have them practice along with you, because you can help each other. If you try actively listening to your partner or your kids and they do the same for you, then, the things that become blow-ups in your house, emotional blow-ups, might suddenly not be emotional blow-ups. Now, the important thing is when you're listening to somebody else, you have to really try to take their perspective. And that's hard sometimes when it's our kids, because you just think they're acting like idiots. Not like we didn't act like idiots, right? but we can have that mindset. We can lose what it's like to be a kid. So we have to kind of regain that. But if we can do that and exchange information in that rational way, then your home life can become more harmonious as well. And we all want to be listened to and understood at all levels of our lives. And when we do that with each other, it's a form of respect that allows harmony. Okay. At some point, of course, the Jedi student becomes the Jedi master. So as you're learning these skills, share them with those you love, use them, with those you love, and there are potential advantages to doing so. Okay. Cool. That's the real end of the sort of skill discussion. I have one more video that I'd like you to come back to, where I'm really just going to talk a little bit more about practice and effective practice, and how you can go from all of this stuff being information you now know to becoming habits and skills that are just part of who you are. So that's what we'll get to in video 6. I look forward to seeing you there.